Okay, we're live. Um, I'm gonna let you start off
Oh, okay.
because you said
Well,
you had the history you want to talk about.
okay. Well, all right. Welcome
Sorry,
back to.
we're late, guys.
That's
We had a
okay.
little chit chat before show, pre-show.
But now we're here for Spooky Saturday, and with the topic of Bigfoot to start off. So, for anybody who only sees what you see in the media, for here in America, the first thing we ever got was a picture of a Yeti foot in 1951. And if anybody sees it, it's a picture in the snow with a ice pick next to it, and that caught the attention. Then in California in 1958, Terry Crew and his gang were the first people to use the word Bigfoot, and that caught on the name. Then almost everybody's probably seen the Patterson Gimlin film of Patty, as they call her, walking across the bed, and she turns and looks at the camera, and you get the instant pictures and uh, all the stuff from beef jerky and you name it. And that's because nobody owns the rights to Bigfoot. That's why anybody can make a movie, anybody can make beef jerky out of it and put the name on it. So there's even a basketball team, and that's their mascot. I think it's Minnesota. I don't follow basketball too much, but I know that. Um, then in the 1970s, people got a little serious about it. They had the four horsemen of the Bigfoot world, which was Peter Byrne, Grover Krantz, John Vandernagel, and John Green. And the last one of the four passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, but they started to make casts of footprints, take hair, go get the DNA sample from it. And we started to categorize what's going on. Um, Now, on the other side, there was a lot of places that started to collect eyewitnesses stuff. If anybody's ever seen Finding Bigfoot, the main guy in that show, Matt Moneymaker, started the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Research Organization. You can go online at any time, find your state, and usually it'll go down to each town, and anybody's had a sighting and they report it, it's on there. Um, Hold on for the airplane. Anyway, then the TV show itself made a lot of people aware of what's going on or how to do it, where you might see people screaming a Bigfoot howl to try and get a response. You get people doing wood knocks where you, because in real life, gorillas do it, and they hit a branch on a tree to communicate to other gorillas. Now, um, one of the big theories going around is there's a 10,000 years ago, Gigantopithecus was like a 10-foot tall ape that really existed, traveled to America and the other countries with all the other types like that. So if you go to California, you get one type of Bigfoot. In Florida and where I am in the South, they call the skunk ape. They're a little bit smaller. You go in the East, they're a middle size. So you go around, and I think it's everywhere but Hawaii. There's actually been sightings, and there's a couple thousand a year from all over the country. 10,000 in a couple of years over the world. And as they say, if only one's right, then there's something to go with it. And you have policemen to mayors, even there's presidents who have seen things. And Teddy Roosevelt wrote down in one of his journals stories about it. Most of the best stories come from the Native Americans, where um, in each area of the country you have different tribes, and none of them speak the same language. None of them connect with each other, but they all have a story of a big, hairy creature. And you see them, the faces on totem poles, they all have different names. You have different names across the world. Australia, they call the Yowie. They call the Yeren in Asia, the Almas in Russia. the Yeti in Nepal where you get the abominable snowman. Fun fact: everybody thinks of like a white abominable snowman. You see it in like Christmas movies now all the time. But
Mhm.
all the stories from Nepal, they're brown. They just might have snow on them. But pop culture took that and ran with it. Also, they get a lot of stuff wrong. Like there's a million Bigfoot movies. 90% of them, they're monsters where they kill people. But
Mhm.
there's no true reports of anybody being hurt by a Bigfoot. There's one famous one of a guy who said he was trapping for furs and his sleeping bag got picked up with him in it, taken
Mm.
to a spot with like two or three Bigfoot around him. And the way he got out was by giving it some of his tobacco, chewing tobacco. And the thing chewed on it and threw up and he ran
Really?
away. Yes, from like the 1940s. It goes. Osterman was his name. You look up Albert Osterman if anybody wants to look it up. That's a very famous story, and he's some old trapper, so he had no reason to lie. But now, speaking of that, I got to bring up the other side of this. There's in Bigfooting, there's the ape camp where people think it's basically the missing link, but there's also the woo, which people say they can travel through portals, they can cloak and
Mhm.
become invisible, they mind speak, they can heal you
Oh,
telepathically.
I haven't heard that.
There's a guy in Oregon. If everybody wants to look it up, his name is Dr. Matthew Johnson. He is a child psychologist, and you can spend $100 and go sleep in his land. And he got, I think it was a hemorrhoid, healed by a Bigfoot. And I'm not making that up.
Really?
He claims that he wrote a book. I got his book from him and read it, and he went on TV and his big claim, and stick with me, this is real. He said that he made a machine with a guy to open a portal. The Bigfoot world they came from was dying, and he got 28,000 Bigfoot, saved them from their planet. They turned into orbs and they live in the trees. So there's two big camps going on. You can be a woo or you can be an aper. And just like every community, those people fight. Uh,
So there's
the,
a supernatural Bigfoots, and then there's just like it's a creature, it's its own thing. Like
yeah,
people.
even the Native American stories, there's many that say they could travel through two worlds. That's why you can read a lot of reports where people find just three footprints, and it's like, well, where did it go? And people will say they'll disappear. Some say they're like a plant person where they're green and they'll turn into the trees. But
Hmm.
take all that with a grain of salt. But you hear a lot of these from every corner of the world. So that you can read the stories and hear them, and there's millions. But personally, I'm in the missing link ape camp where if one
Hmm.
were to exist, I think that's the best explanation. Now, I've never seen one, but I did have. They have rock throwing, as they call them. Like in Vietnam, they're called rock apes, where they throw rocks because that's what gorillas do.
Yeah.
But for me, I was in Mississippi, and the guys I was with, we had a large boulder thrown at us in the middle of the night. Could have been that, could have been anything. But those are the
Hmm.
stories you hear: rock throwing and stick throwing. Now, did you check out that video at all with the structures?
Um, I watched like the one that you sent me where they were looking for the Bigfoot, like the ladies.
Okay, well that was the Monster Quest. The other one I
Okay.
sent you was where the stick structures all through the woods, like you see trees bending and everything.
Oh, I think I did watch some of that.
That's a big part of it where people in the middle of nowhere, like that guy's in the middle of Colorado, and they find trees like upside down stuck in the ground. They find them bent over, teepees in the middle of nowhere with trees, like not sticks, trees in a teepee. So you got to ask, well, how did that happen? And, if anybody looks up stick structures, like they look like what a Bigfoot might, not a shelter, but would get in to hide or to catch prey or whatever. But trees, as thick as a person are turned upside down and stuck in the ground. So those are interesting stuff where it's unexplainable.
Is
So,
there
but
anybody that thinks like Bigfoot, like the Bigfoots, like built the pyramids or anything like that? Is there any theories on that?
the closest for that is
'Cause
there are a lot of stories about Bigfoots and UFOs together, where people see
mhm.
a UFO, there's a light that comes down, then a Bigfoot walks out. There's many of those. Now, nothing to do with the pyramids, as far as I know. That's more of an ancient alien thing.
Well,
But
like I've heard people say stuff like, "Oh, they're like the giants or whatever," which I don't necessarily think they're. I think
uh,
Bigfoots are like I don't think they're the giants, but I believe
what
there were giants.
what you
But
might be thinking of? Are you thinking of the Nephilim?
I think, but like there was like
That's
some I don't know. There's some giant that like some soldiers in Afghanistan said they killed. Have you ever heard that?
that that particular story turned out to be a hoax, but
Was it a hoax?
that one was. But
It was a
there
cool
are.
story, but
Oh no! Look, there's countless eyewitnesses of, like, many of the Bigfoot are like 6 to 10 feet at the most, and
mhm.
those are would be adults. There are many 20 feet tall that were reported. I don't know how personally you wouldn't notice that, but there is a big camp in the Bigfoot community that say the Bigfoot are the Nephilim from the Bible,
Yeah, that's
where
I guess that's what I was getting at. I've heard people say that, but
where
I don't believe
no,
that, but
they
some
say
people do.
angels found the women beautiful and they created giants. That's in the Bible. Now
Yeah.
I was in a room with somebody who said that, and I said, well, how did they survive Noah's flood? And they said, well, they're giants. And I'm like, okay. So
What does that mean?
I guess they think they treaded water for 40 days. I don't know, but I've heard that
Really?
they
They
were.
think they just stood up for like 40.
Nah, but you've probably seen in some of these discussions in the religion atheist thing where they believe that Nephilim did exist. So
Yeah.
how much of a jump is it to say that that's where Bigfoot descended from? That's where that's a
I
big
don't know.
camp.
I mean, I just don't think some giants was like standing up for 40 days and stuff. Like that's a little far fetched from reality to me. Um, but the Bigfoot stuff, I heard most of the sightings are in Washington. A lot of
That
them
has
are.
right now that has the most, but uh,
They're all over though, aren't they?
third place is Florida,
Oh yeah, okay.
where, like, I'm in Louisiana. There's not that much. There are some reports, and I went to the places, but um, Washington is number one because Washington connects to Canada, and that whole thing is, the Pacific Northwest is literally a rainforest. If anybody has seen Harry and the Hendersons, those woods, that's Seattle in that movie. It looks like that, the big redwoods. So
Mhm.
that would be the place for them to hide if you think about it. But anybody who's traveled, it doesn't take long when you travel to run into woods. And
Mhm.
so that's why people say, well, why don't we have a picture or a dead body? I can tell you, I've been hunting since I was in diapers. I've never seen a bear yet.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's not hard.
from what I heard, Bigfoots are very intelligent. They're kind of human-like in a way. They probably know how to hide and stuff. They're like not
Well,
stupid. Like they see people and they don't want to be seen. They're not going to be seen.
I tell you, more than not, anytime there's a hunter who has a story, 9 out of 10 they say I would never pull the trigger because they looked human. They had a human face.
Yeah, that's what I hear
So
too.
if
They're
if they
they're a
are
lot like us, you know.
if they are that missing link in a sense, they're as smart as us, but they have the power of an animal. So yeah, they're gonna hear us coming from a mile away and know how to hide. And most Bigfooters
Mhm.
will tell you if you're gonna see one, you need to just get lucky. But
Yeah.
we have trail cameras now. There's a lot of people in the Bigfoot world who say the Bigfoot can hear the mechanisms in the camera. I don't buy that. I just think it's
They
hard
probably
to
like
catch
it's
one.
like surveillance cameras or something, right, for the woods now. So, they could possibly catch one. I guess. But the Native Americans, I thought they believed like the Bigfoots are like really kind creatures that help them and would protect them and
So
stuff.
I can tell you some. I looked up the history in my area, and there's there's many of these stories where they say the Bigfoot will have a basket, like a woven basket, and take a
Hmm.
small child to put in it. And some say that's just a story to tell kids don't go in the woods alone at night. But
Hmm.
again, you find these stories throughout the country, and none of these tribes talk to each other. So it's kind of odd that they wouldn't, and it's different languages, so they can't, like, the story wouldn't have traveled, they wouldn't have known. But yeah, many are they call them the forest friends sometimes. And if anybody who wants to go looking for Bigfoot, treat it like any animal. Could be dangerous. Don't think they're your
Didn't you
forest
like
friend.
you brought something up about ancient drawings and stuff too? So it's like there's a lot of ancient
There's
drawings of Bigfoot, so people have been seeing them for a long time.
the most famous, and it was probably in that Monster Quest, is a 10,000 or so year old cave drawing in California on rocks, and it looks like a Bigfoot.
Hmm.
There's no doubt that's the shape. And that was from Native
So,
Americans. So
do you think the Bigfoot's like a Neanderthal type of thing?
I think personally, like I said, the missing link in the sense of Neanderthals, then we branched one way, and the Bigfoot is another branch the other way, and the apes, gorillas that we know. And remember, the gorillas that we know from zoos weren't discovered till 1950s, the 1950s. They
Yeah,
were a myth before then. So how hard is it to believe that now we have all these sightings of Bigfoot because we're branching and building more houses in the woods? And so it kind of makes sense, but we don't have any hard proof. In the Bigfoot world, they say we need a body, but nobody wants to
yeah.
truly kill one. Some
Well,
do.
yeah, that just seems not right because they're like human-like. You just don't feel right about that. Um, what do you think about that Patterson film?
Well, here's
Think it's
the
real?
pro. Here's the pros and cons of the Patterson Gimlin film because people have dissected the story forever. Patterson himself he went looking for a Bigfoot. He wrote a check for the camera he used. That he ended up the check bounced, and he was kind of, they say he was a shady guy. Now it's called the Patterson Gimlin film. Bob
Hmm.
Gimlin, he's still alive. He still goes to Bigfoot conferences. He's literally a cowboy. He dresses like a cowboy. He is a
Yeah, I've
rancher.
seen him. Yeah.
He hasn't changed the story in one bit. He's a normal level guy. There's been two people. One's named Bob Hieronymus, who came out and said, I was the guy in the suit. But he could never produce the suit. He couldn't take people back to the film site.
Yeah, that's what I
Now
say. I heard there's some guy who couldn't, he didn't even know where it was at. So I was like, okay, you're a
that was
liar. Like,
him. Now the biggest thing that people bring up is the footage was in 1967. The biggest thing in Hollywood, the best suit in Hollywood was the movie The Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. And if
hmm.
you look at that movie, it looks for the time great, but we can tell it looks like poop. Now, if you go look at the Patterson Gimlin film, that would be one of the most elaborate suits ever for 1967. So
Oh yeah, I didn't think like the time too. Like,
yeah,
it
and
looked pretty real.
some people can have pointed out like a bulge that's a muscle in one of the legs looks like a hernia, and she has boobs. They call her Patty. Like, why go through the trouble to make fake breasts? And you know,
Oh, so I think it was a female Bigfoot.
yeah, when in the footage when she turns, you can see hanging pendulum breasts, as they say. So,
Yeah, orangutan titties.
well, if it was a boy, you would see something else. So it makes sense to be something, but
Yeah.
that's the key. That, like, if somebody made that video today, you could scrutinize it like, come on. But for 1967, it would be almost impossible to make that kind of suit. And that's where people really stop and go, that's the key. The other part is you have to take the guy. Patterson, was like a car, like a used car salesman. He was a fast talker and sometimes a jokester, but he didn't try and even make money off all that. So, but he passed away in the 70s, and Bob Gilman's still alive, and he's never changed his story. So it's up to you personally, everybody, to really decide at that point.
Well, the guys that are like, claiming it was them, they probably just want to get famous. They're probably
But
just
they
trying to like take credit for it.
But in the end, they really didn't. Like Bob Gillen makes a little money touring around now, but none of them ever got rich off
Well,
it.
I mean, like the
Nobody.
guys that were like, "Oh, I was in the suit," like they're
Oh,
trying to get some
yeah.
clout. They want to take credit for being Bigfoot. You know.
Yeah, and that guy, Bob Hieronymus, who said he was the guy in the footage, he passed away. But yeah, he never could bring him. He never knew where it was later on, and nobody's ever to this day produced a suit. So
He didn't have the receipt, so.
that's right. And if anybody wants to look up the second best footage to this date, is called the Paul Freeman footage from 1994, and it looks just as good as that one in a 90s version. And that guy worked for Wildlife and Fisheries, and the video is him just walking. He goes, "Oh, there go," and he's freaking out, and you see one walk by. And there's a million hoax videos too, but you know, people it's called the breakdown community, and
Yeah.
these are people who are like ex-photographers, ex-policemen, who break down the video and go, okay, well, here's the zipper on the suit, or here's this problem. So just like every other community, there's policeman type thing. There's for the Bigfoot community. It's kind of neat, so you don't get a lot of hoaxes. But in 2008, they had the great, what they call, freezer hoax, where these two guys from Georgia said, we killed a Bigfoot and we have it in our freezer. And they ran with it. It was on CNN. It was on all these. It got really big, really big. In the end, it turned out it was a suit with possum guts in it. But they fooled the world for at least a year. And I've talked to one of the guys. He right now he's a used car salesman. His name's Rick Dyer. He's actually a decent kind of guy, but he took a fake body around like a carnival and tried. It's really funny, but some people run with it. Yeah, the great.
That's crazy.
And then not too long ago, he tried again and had somebody make a really nice suit. He named it Hank, put it in a glass box, and went like Ripley's Believe It or Not or something, or like you go to the carnival and pay to go see the mermaid, and people bought it, and eventually he said, "Nah, it's fake," but he made like 10 grand or something like that. But the true Bigfooters, and there's many great groups, I'll tell you that, and I connect with a lot of them. I talk to them where it's almost a social network where people in West Virginia talk to the people in California, talk to people down here in the South, and try and make it a connection. And of course, you get a lot of the same haters and stuff, and people like, especially on Facebook. I try and stay out of it, but people block each other because they're like, your picture looks fake, and it's like, well, F you. And it's like any other community. So you have your ups and downs, but there is a giant, like anybody who's interested, try and find a decent group. And there's one in every area, every state, but there's also like TV shows. Expedition Bigfoot just came out and just ended. It was on Discovery of the Travel Channel. Turns out they lied to everybody. They said they were in the middle of nowhere. They were on a ranch. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Scamming everybody. That's
right.
Like that Bear Grylls guy. He's like, I'm out here surviving, and then he's like going to the buffet and stuff. Yeah, it's like, you went to the buffet, dude. You ain't surviving nothing.
Well, I tell you what, though, Bear might have lied about that, but he was really eating like snakes.
I saw him freaking. He picked like freaking nuts out of freaking bear dookie, and he's like, I'm gonna wash it off with the snow. I'm like, dude. So yeah, he does some nasty stuff, but like he's not actually surviving out there. I did see him eat a rat too one time.
You ever heard of Les Stroud, Survivor Man? he had a show just like that, and what he would do is he would take a camera, go into the woods, or he went all over the world, but just him with like two cameras for like weeks at a time, and it was real footage. And he's come out and had a couple Bigfoot stories he's told, but he's not a Bigfooter, but he's
Yeah.
the real deal, and he'll tell you like, yeah, he was in Alaska, and he said, yeah, I was by myself. There was nobody for 1,000 miles, and he heard what could only be described as a monkey. And he's like, what else could that be? There's nothing like that out there. So those are the stories you go, oh, okay, that's a little weird. Um,
Well, it seems like the people that see Bigfoot are people that just weren't expecting it. Like it was not even something that's on their radar. You know, the actual Bigfooters, like unfortunately, they don't get to experience that a lot of the time. You know, it's like the people don't. You know, they're just like, "Whoa, yeah, I saw Bigfoot." Like,
well, what's funny, you mentioned that when I said that they had the four horsemen of Bigfooters in the 70s.
hmm
Only one of them had a sighting. The rest had never seen one. They studied it until they died, but they never saw one. So you get the hoaxes, and it's like that's the bad part. Like there's people who have seen something, but nobody's going to believe them because of the bad people. It's funny. It's like religion.
hmm
I've heard people in the Bigfoot community say, "Well, you got to believe me. I'm a God fearing Christian." And it's like, well, that doesn't make it right. And
hmm
but they swear by it and they use that. And I don't like that. But like I said, you find doctors and lawyers and policemen who will say, I was just driving by and there was a 10-foot tall hairy person. And those are the stories you kind of lean to. So, but I guarantee you can find some in every state, in every corner. And actually, one of our last Saturdays, somebody from Arizona said, is there anything around me? I went and checked, and it's called the Mongolian Rim, and it's like a mesa of mountains, and they do have a Mongolian monster. So,
Oh, really? Hey, I gotta go to the bathroom because I drank like five of these sparkling waters. So I'll be right back.
okay, no
So you guys,
problem.
you could talk to the audience. There's like five people watching.
I will talk to the five people.
All
Okay,
right,
so
BRB.
no problem. So yeah, if anybody really wants to look up for their area, there's actually a cryptid for every state. A lot are Bigfoot, but you have the Jersey Devil, you have the Lizard Man of Skateboard Swamp, you have the Ohio Grass Man, you have the Skunk Ape down south, you have um, you can cross over to shadow people, but every almost every lake has stories of a lake monster. Champ in Lake Champlain. You have trying to think like there's some really odd ones like that. Where Hannah lives, there's an octopus story. Take that, with a grain of salt, I guess. But um, there's there's a legend there may be a dog man or a werewolf. They look the same, but they're not the same. They'll tell you the dog man is a dog the size of a man. A werewolf is what you see in the movies, an actual wolf that was a man. Where I live, there's the Rougarou, Cajun werewolf, where it's a werewolf. Trying to think of the map in my head. Um, if you go, actually, Canada has a lot of really weird cryptids. Uh, like one's I think it's called a hammerhead cat. It's a cat with an axe shaped for a head. There's a Groot, not a Groot, excuse me. I am Groot. I won't say Goop, but it's spelled like Goupt or something like that. Um, but yeah, if anybody wants to look up anything in their area or their state, it's not hard to. But I will say, don't go looking if if you've never been in the woods or you don't go in the woods that often. Be careful.
All right, I'm back.
I gave some good info.
What I miss? Where's my
I
drink
was
at?
I was
Drink some
trying to
more.
just I was running through some of the other stuff from other states, and like I showed you that map. I said,
Mm-hmm.
from the Jersey Devil to the octopus to lake monsters to lizard monsters, dog man. You know, uh, every state has something. Even the deserts of Arizona, those, you name it.
Oh yeah, I did write down other like just like random stuff that I looked into today. Um, just some of those creatures and stuff. Are we still on Bigfoot though? I don't want to just like start talking
No,
about like
we can go to the next to a new one. I had rambled off some to the audience, so go ahead and pick a couple.
well,
What
the
struck
ones
you?
that I don't really prepare myself until like the day we're gonna like start filming, so that's how like unprofessional I am. But somebody was like asking about the melon heads, and they're like, "Oh, it's the black eyed children melon heads," because we talked about black eyed children like last week or the week before,
Yeah,
and like I think they're inspired by that. Have you ever seen that movie Wrong Turn?
yeah,
I think that's like what are not inspired like that movie's inspired by them actually. Um because like they say they're like these big headed like cannibals or something.
yeah. Also, the hills have eyes.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
stories of mutated people that turn into cannibals.
Yeah. Exactly. Like people like some dude said that one of them tied him to a tree or something and tortured him and he said he never got over it and he's older now. He's like, yeah, I just anytime I see anything that looks like them, like I freak out. Like um but then there was some rumor or something that they came from like some asylum or something. Like they were just, but then that ended up not being true. But there was a whole story like, oh, a doctor had all these melonhead kids or whatever, and like they escaped and they started eating people and they ate the doctor. It was like it was really crazy, but it ended up being a lie.
There's
Um,
always an escape mental patient story.
I know there really is. But there is a disorder where people have big heads or whatever. Like there is a
Yeah.
something that people are born with, and people are saying, "Oh, is it like that?" But it's like, why would like people that are like handicapped or something, they're just gonna live out in the woods and eat people? It's just like
Well,
I don't know.
I, we can go with this one because I had mentioned it to you on one of the other shows, but Thunderbirds, right?
Uh-huh.
You have
Yeah,
Native
Thunderbird.
American stories of gigantic birds. Now, in from Illinois to California, in the north, they look like a giant condor, black with a white ring, and there's stories from them picking up children. They're so big
Yeah, I've
to
heard of that.
stories in. You had mentioned like dinosaurs, like literal pterodactyls, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I my only cryptid I ever saw in my eyes was a bird that stood 7 feet tall. I had two other people with me. It was all white,
Oh, you
but
told me about this.
so like Thunderbird is a cryptid. It's that's at the
Mm-hmm.
top of totem poles for all Native Americans. So that story goes a long way, but they look different. But there's many stories of giant birds, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to be picked up by one. I haven't seen one 20 yards in front of me. I
Well,
can tell you.
freaking uh, what are those ostriches? Those things are really tall.
Right.
I was at the
Picture that
zoo.
flying.
I was at the zoo, and there was this ostrich. He's way taller than me, and the fence was shorter than him. So I'm like, he's gonna walk over there, and he's gonna come and like kill me or something. So I was freaking out. Um, but yeah, those things are giant. So it's like, I mean, there possibly is
Um,
uh,
a
bigger
lot of
birds out there.
a lot of cryptids are just bigger versions. There's black panthers or black cats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a picture, and I can send it to you later, but it's on like my Instagram and Facebook. Where in Louisiana we had one, but you get them in Europe and you get them all over America, where it's the size of a panther or a jaguar, all black, and it's seen all over the place. And the tails are very long. It doesn't look like a house cat, and they find paw prints. So, like big animals or a big, those stick out. And I wouldn't want a big cat jumping on me either, because if anybody's had a cat scratch them, you can
Yeah.
imagine one the size of a dog.
Well, there's the was it the Beast of
Bray
Busco or
Road.
Is that it?
The Beast
Bisco
of Bray
Busco,
Road?
something like that. It's a giant turtle. It's a
Oh,
humongous turtle. It's like 500 pounds or something,
a
and people have
turtle.
seen it, and they say it looks like some kind of prehistoric turtle, and I think it's a sea turtle or something. Because I sort of have my own theories about giant stuff, and I've talked about it a few times. I don't usually get into my theories because I don't want people to call me idiot, but um, I think that because the oxygen levels are not as rich anymore, things don't usually grow as massive anymore as they used to be. Because we found fossils of all kinds of giant creatures and spiders and 2,000 pound guinea pig or whatever. Um, that stuff don't exist anymore, but stuff in the ocean doesn't breathe, like they don't breathe oxygen. Stuff that's in the water, maybe they're still colossal as hell. I mean, the biggest known species is a whale, because they're in the water. I don't know, like they don't need oxygen like we do. Oxygen, like when they have little samples of little, what is it, like the sap that has the oxygen in it? It's so rich, it's so pure that things were able to grow massive from it. And we don't
Well,
we don't have that anymore.
you were right about everything because one cryptid used to be the giant squid until I think it was the 1960s. One washed up on shore. You can find a picture of it. I think it was in Japan, and it was like
Mhm.
60 feet long, and it was a squid. And those used to be a cryptid tail, like nobody knew if they existed. Um, it's been proven that animals got smaller over time because they didn't have to fight over being
Mhm.
that big. So over time, they did get smaller, but you do get the anomaly where there's just like a big person. Look at basketball players. Not everybody's 7 feet tall. They do exist.
Mhm.
You get that, I'm short, but one of my sons is like 6 feet tall. But it goes for the animal kingdom. And, you also get mixtures. You can find a picture of this. There's a bear. Uh, this, uh, this guy went hunting and he was hunting for bear. You're not allowed to kill polar bears, but
Mhm.
he was up in that area where you could run into one, but you're supposed to run into grizzlies. Well, he shot a bear, and it was a hybrid. It was a white grizzly bear, so it looked all white with a grizzly bear face. So
Mhm.
you get these weird amalgamations of different animals over time. So again, how hard is it to think that something like a Bigfoot or now I was telling the audience like you get a lot of dogman stories, and
Mhm.
those are different than werewolves. You get dogman is picture a dog head on something the size of a human. A werewolf is a werewolf, but
Yeah.
you get these stories from everywhere, and people describe them in detail. And there's many a show out there about dogman stories because those are not like Bigfoot where they're walking away from you. Like people are growled at, people's campers are torn up. You get many amazing stories. There's a place called Land Between the Pines or something like that. I want to say Kentucky. I'm sorry, I forgot, but it has the most dogman stories. People have been killed without explanation in this area. I was telling the audience, for anybody listening, don't ever go in the woods alone. Don't think you're
Mhm.
just going to go run out and find these things. Don't tell people where you're going, you know, because people, even who know what they're doing, get lost in the woods or, you know,
Mhm.
disappear or, get torn up by something. But yeah, like when you run into things like the dog man, or, but I tell people, like, if you see a squirrel on the ground, I wouldn't pick that up either. So if you see an animal the size of
Mhm.
you, don't go pick that up. So that just some
Well,
advice.
exactly.
Go pick up a rabbit. Go pick up a wild rabbit and it'll tear you up.
I'm not messing with squirrels, so they got rabies and stuff. I don't want to get the rabies.
Not all,
Uh,
but any animal could,
but I just don't trust it. I don't know who's got the rabies, who don't. I ain't messing with them.
Well, I'll
Uh,
tell you this. I have a good friend. who lives in New Jersey, and she has possums as pets, and
Oh, those are cute.
they're supposed to have bacteria in their mouth. Also, raccoons, where their defense is if they bite something, they'll get you sick. Look at what's her name who has a skunk as a pet, Chantel or whatever her name is.
Oh, you talking about that big lady that does those workouts? Oh
Well,
yeah, I noticed she has a skunk.
yeah,
Yeah,
I, it might be cute and cuddly, but their defense is to spray, and she might not want, it might not ever do it, but if it does it once,
do they
you know,
not like fix those or something if you have one? Like, or they
I,
still got
you
the
know,
booty juice?
I thought about that, and I don't know if they can descent a skunk, but it's such a wild animal at heart. I don't know why you would want one as a pet, but
Yeah,
people have odd pets, so you know,
yeah,
I,
exotic stuff. Yeah, straight up exotic pets and stuff.
speaking of
Um,
that, look at snakes. Like the cryptids in the snake world, there's some people have reported 100 feet long. You know,
yeah,
so
the people have seen like giant snakes and stuff. They've been freaking like eaten by them or whatever. Um,
I live near the swamps, and I've seen my share. I've had to kill my fair share,
so
and
you
some
probably had
get
to
big.
kill a lot of snakes out there.
Well, but look at people who have boa constrictors and carry them around on them, and they don't have poison, but I wouldn't trust it. But there's
No.
stories of gigantic snakes, but that to me is still an exotic pet. Some people in the '70s used to have like tigers as pets,
Oh, that's so crazy.
and
I think
well,
it's crazy to have a monkey as a pet though too. They'll rip your face off.
you literally, I was just gonna say somebody had a chimp as a pet, and it ripped her friend's face off, and there's pictures of it. I suggest nobody
Are
looks
you
it up. It's
serious?
gross.
That no, that really happened though.
Yes, she had a chimp and wore diapers and had it for years, and then one day
They just go crazy. Yeah,
it
because
went crazy on her
they're
friend.
unpredictable, like
They're
unpredictable animals.
yeah, they're not meant to be in captivity.
No, and it's like almost like it's not the animal's fault either though. Like it doesn't know any
Nah.
better. Like even though it's horrible, like like what was it? Siegfried and Roy, like one of those guys
His
got like torn apart by their
they had white tigers in their act for 20, 30 years, and at the one that killed him just went nuts. Like they're animals.
yeah, exactly. Um, I don't think it's smart to have a tiger in your house. So be snuggling with that. I think
No,
I'm
like
good on that. My cat attacks me all the time. It's little and it hurts, so it's like
yeah,
I
we
don't
have
want a
three
big old
cats.
kitty.
We have three cats, and when they want to bite or claw, so you can imagine what a cougar or a mountain lion would do to you in the wild,
Even if they're just playing with you, it's gonna be like they might tear you up.
or a
And I
bear.
heard that like cats and stuff, don't they think when they have a mice or something, they think that they're just playing, but they're like torturing the hell
They,
out of it. It's like,
yeah, they don't eat what a lot of times they kill.
yeah,
Like
but it
they're
seems
not
like
trying to eat it.
they don't even know that they're being like a complete psycho or lunatic. They're just like,
Look at
ripping it
look at
shreds.
yeah, look at dogs. Like dogs don't want to eat like all the little like they run around see a mouse. They don't want to eat it. They'll shake it, break a neck, whatever. Or a pit bull who instinctively will dig a hole. If anybody's had a pit bull, they dig like 4 foot holes. My Max, who my co-host on my shows, he
Mhm.
had a pit bull. It dug holes so deep when we were kids, we'd fill them with water and get in them.
Oh,
But
really?
they do that instinctively because a pit bull's instinct is to fight, and if it wins, to put the dead dog it fought in the hole and bury it. So they instinctively dig holes. So if you ever had a pit bull or seen one just dig a deep hole, it's instinct. So to think like any
Okay.
animal's not going to be dangerous. So there's so
Yeah.
when somebody has a skunk or a possum as a pet, you're like, what do you think's going to happen? You're like, well, how do you know something won't happen? But I'm not here to tell anybody their business. I just want everybody
Yeah.
safe. But I saw that girl with a skunk on her video, and I'm like, oh no, you
I don't
never
know.
know. And we have skunks down here, and my aunt got sprayed when I was young, and you have to burn your
Sorry.
clothes. What's that?
I just didn't mean to laugh. Like I was laughing
Oh
because you're like
no,
she got like sprayed.
no. I mean, it doesn't hurt you, but it is as
No,
bad
it's
as
like
you
gross.
think.
Like yeah, I have to like deal with like there's a lot of skunks out here, so I was just like laughing. I'm sorry. That
Well,
was childish and rude.
even snakes, some produce a bad smell as a defense mechanism. So
Yeah.
there's many animals who do that just on instinct. So a skunk is obviously the worst, but hey, if you think that could be your pet, have at it. I know that girl has children, so as long as she's safe, then hey. But that thing was huge. It's like saying I have a beaver for a pet. So, you know,
Sorry, I'm over here like dying, like
that's
coughing.
okay.
Freaking
Nah,
flu
that's all right.
season. I hope I don't got coronas.
No, but there's actually I'll say it here, but I'll give you a link later. But it's called Bigfoot Crossroads, and one of the hosts on that show, that guy's awesome. His name's Matt Knapp, and one of the other shows I've been on before,
Hmm.
he's from Oklahoma, and he catalogs a lot from his area. He's in the southern part, like south of Tulsa.
Hmm.
I don't know exactly which city, but let me tell you, there's no shortage of Bigfoot stories from that area. And Hanoba, uh, I think it's called the Hanoba Festival. It's the name of a city,
Oh, in
but
Oklahoma,
yeah, or
I've never been there.
something like that. But yeah, they have a festival for Bigfoot because there's so many. So that's the thing. I don't care where you live. There's a Bigfoot or a cryptid or there's something everywhere. There's stories for everything, and that's what's exciting about it. Like you
Hmm.
never know what's out there, and anybody can go looking, but you got to be careful, obviously. But um, unless it's supernatural, and like if you say shadow people, you can't really fight it or hunt it. So
Yeah, I mean,
the
yeah,
big,
like demons and stuff. Yeah.
well, that's I guess that's the same as a shadow person. Like it's not ethereal, like a ghost. Like there's really nothing you can do about it. So
Yeah, like I don't know how you can fight that off because like a lot of these creatures that we're talking about, it's like are they really monsters or are they just like they're just different species we don't really know that much about. It seems like you know and we discover stuff all the time and then we like think something's extinct and then it turns out it's not. Like that kind of stuff happens too.
the most famous is the coelacanth, and that was a cryptid. It's a fish that literally lived with the dinosaurs. We thought it was extinct, and I
Hmm.
think it was the 1930s. Somebody fished one. So,
Yeah.
and there's many. I had mentioned this to the audience. There's many. Anytime there's a lake, there's usually a lake monster. There's giant eel stories. You have an octopus near you. Like, what if it is just an octopus that is there? There's been sharks found in fresh water.
Well, maybe they
Like
just adapt or something.
right, the story that Jaws, the movie, is based off of is from stories in the 30s. A shark got in the waters around New Jersey and caused
Hmm.
trouble. And sharks aren't supposed to go in fresh water, but this one did. So now the octopus, I don't know much about those, but like that would be a crazy thing to run into,
Yeah.
and that lake is literally in the middle of nowhere. Like there's
It's
no other
I think
water.
it's Lake Thunderbird, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is that
Lake
the lake?
Thunderbird.
Yeah. A lot of people like die in that lake all the time, but I think a lot of it is due to people just partying, getting drunk and stuff, and then it's very deep, and people just swim off too far while they're. I mean, how are you gonna swim when you're like wasted? So I think a lot of that happens. Um, but there have been a couple people that said like, "Oh, an octopus like freaking like try to take me down and stuff." But there's not that much information on it really that I can even find. I just heard a
Well,
couple of things about like the octopus, but
one
uh,
of the most. Oh, sorry.
oh, I was
Go
just
ahead.
saying but like a lot of people like drowning and stuff. It's like a lot of times it's like their own faults and stuff. It seems like.
Well, you had mentioned one of the first things we ever talked about was the Loch Ness monster, and if you were to just take that to where, and one of our lakes here in Louisiana, there's that kind of story. You got Champ from Lake Champlain, but that's the hardest one you could ever find because, like, even if you scuba dive or go in a submarine, those lakes are black. You can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And there's cave systems. And so it's not like Bigfoot where you can go put a tent in the woods and stay out there. The water you can't see. And to me, that's the scariest. You would put up some pictures of Creature from the Black Lagoon. I wanted to tell you that's my favorite monster, like
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh, you
old
love him?
monsters,
Yeah.
because to me that's the scariest. You can't see it down there, and
Yeah, it's
like
totally just black.
we can't breathe underwater. Like we're not meant to be there. But so yeah, there's reports of 6 to 8 foot eels in many lakes, or
Mm.
barracuda type fish. I forgot the name, but which many think some of these lake monsters are just oh. But I don't want to see an 8 foot fish either. So you know,
No, like that sounds pretty scary. But also like like if people catch this stuff on video or if they take a picture, like with all the photoshopping, it's like how are we gonna even know if it's real? Because of like that's something I think about all the time. It's like what if there is real stuff out there, but it gets mixed in with a fake, and we're like that's just photoshopped, or so like how are we ever gonna know? Because we have to take people's words a lot of the time, and some people aren't honest. So
well,
that makes it.
you you said it right, and like I said, there's thankfully there's a lot of people who can weed out the bad stuff, who can tell when something's CGI'd in or Photoshop, and or like the lights. Like some people are good enough to say, well, this picture was taken at 10:30 in the morning, but the sun should be over here, or at that time of day, this and that. By the way, it's daylight savings. Don't forget to set your clocks tonight
Oh.
for anybody. Just saying it, but yeah, there are a lot of people, but it is easy to fake, and there's a million videos out there, so you got to do a little digging, but there are some that will rise to the top where people just can't explain, and that's why again the Patterson Gimlin film is so revered because people still can't debunk it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was taken in the 60s, and people
Is
can't
there
debunk it.
is there any Bigfoot stuff that you've been tricked by? Anything that you thought like, oh, I think this is legit, and then like it turns out it's a hoax, and then you're kind of like, man,
Personally, yeah. There's the video. It's called "I Thought I Saw a Skunk Ape," and it was taken. The video was taken in Mississippi,
mm-hmm,
and it looks like a silverback gorilla in the swamp. And since I live near the swamps, I knew what the terrain looked like. Like I've been in that area, that type of terrain, and it took somebody a while, but they figured out. A lot of the times, people get busted by when they put out the video and the info they put out. And people will track down by their name and find out, oh, they work for a movie studio.
mm,
And that will debunk it.
so
Or, like I
showbiz
said, people will
stuff.
go, right. So, but that one, it looks so real. It fooled everybody for a long time. There's a couple called the Provo Canyon, Utah Bigfoot, and it was these kids just out. I say kids, they were teenagers, and they turned their camera, and if you look at it, it just looks like a person or a Bigfoot standing up. And it took years, but then I think one of the kids came out and said, "Yeah, we did that." And or like some people will be on a movie set for a Bigfoot movie and take a picture, then go on YouTube, put it out, and try and trick people because you can make money. Like I said, nobody owns the rights to Bigfoot. That's why there's so
Mm-hmm,
many movies, or that beef jerky company has it, or because nobody owns it. Because how
I
do you
saw
own
that
stuff like that?
that Bobcat Goldthwait movie, and
Willow
he
Creek,
trolled us. Yeah, he trolled us, dude. It was a troll.
the
I thought
Bigfoot
it was gonna.
community, the Bigfoot community hates that movie because he did a good job though. Everything up until the end is what you hear a lot of stories where people hear knocks and whoops and howls, but then at the end it's a naked woman.
Yeah, it's
Spoiler.
like that naked old woman. It's like what the
If he didn't do that, it would have been great. But he is into it. He went to where the Patterson Gimlin film was taken. He
really?
talked. He goes to conventions, and Willow Creek is one of where Patty was filmed. It was Bluff Creek, California. Or it's Bluff Creek, Willow
Really?
Creek. Anyway, but he is into it. But yeah, everybody loved the movie, and at the end, he ruined it with something
Well, yeah,
supernatural.
I was gonna say like I wasn't even really into Bigfoot that much, but I wanted to watch that. I watched it like years ago when it came out, and I was like so disappointed. I was like, okay, it's like some naked old lady. Like, are you serious? I was like, he trolled us, dude. This is
It, you
stupid.
I can recommend a really good one. Okay, it's called Exist. Okay, EXIST. Um, I I forgot the guy's name, but it's a guy who directed real movies, and I won't give anything away, but it's a really good one, and it's not too cheesy. It looks good. The suit looks good. The story's interesting. But I will warn everybody: there's a million Bigfoot movies. Some are terrible. There's Bigfoot porn out there, and I am not lying. There's erotic Bigfoot books and movies, so you gotta be careful what you're getting in. There's something for everybody, I guess. But hey, we're not here to judge, so but be careful what
Whatever.
you find out. There's one that came out with Sam Elliott, a famous actor. It's called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Bigfoot. I saw it on Hulu. I don't know if it's still there, but it is very good, extremely interesting. So
Hmm.
there's out of 100, you'll get three that are great. But Exist is one I highly recommend to anybody. And the one it's easy to remember Hitler and Bigfoot. That's the
Okay.
man who shot both. Those are two good ones, but for every good one there's literally 50 bad ones. But some are just campy fun.
Yeah.
Most they make it evil. And obviously the most famous is Harry and the Henderson,
Yeah. He is
which
sweet.
that gives you the gentle giant Bigfoot. And yeah, that's the best made one to this
Yeah,
day.
kind of like how Harry and Henderson, all the people seem kind of more evil than the Bigfoot. That's sort of what they did with Planet of the Apes. The people were really evil, and then like we were being jerks to all these monkeys. I was watching that, and I was like rooting for the monkeys. I was like, these people suck, dude.
It's the cautionary tale or the humanistic tale, and like that's why I was saying there's a lot of people who look at the reports and point out that there's maybe one or two where the Bigfoot story has a violent Bigfoot. Many movies show it attacking people because that's what sells movies, but the reports are it was walking away from me, or it saw me and ran, or it ran across the road, or there's many where it was looking in the window, and that if you think of that, that's scary in and of itself of an 8 foot monkey person looking in your
Yeah,
window. But they seem to be very curious. Like many stories of them watching kids play and then they walk off, or you know they were looking through the bushes and then disappeared. There are some where they shake houses or shake campers, tents. Like one, there's a story, a
you
very
think they're
famous
just
one.
looking for food or something?
I that and some guy put it best where he said we are probably their entertainment. They don't have TVs and all that, but we come running around making noise, and there's many stories where people who play guitars at camping, they come around when they hear the music.
Oh
Like
yeah,
like we're probably interesting to them, and they rummage through ice
like
chests. Their
they're just like
stories.
fascinated or something by us.
Yeah, there's a very, very famous story where a guy had a Bigfoot, by his account, pee on his tent.
Wow.
So, Some have stories of a Bigfoot like reaching in the tent and pulling the person out and then running off.
What if
You
like
know,
there's big feet or big feet? There's Bigfoots out there that have like people for like pets and stuff. They just got
you
like a
never
people.
know. By the way, there's a debate in the Bigfoot community of what do you call the plural of a Bigfoot? I'm in the camp like sheep. Sheep
Hmm.
plural is sheep singular. I say there was a Bigfoot or there was a group of Bigfoot. Some people say big feet. Some like
Oh
they
really?
try
I
and
didn't know how to
so,
say it. I don't
no,
know.
that's the thing.
That's a thing.
There is no right way to say it, so it's up to you. They're trying to make a name for it, like troop, like gorillas are called troops. When there's
Yeah, the troop of
so the apers, as we say, we call them troops, but I go with Bigfoot
I
plural or
don't
singular.
really like to even call Bigfoots apes, and it's not because I feel like they're their own thing. They're not really
Mm,
like
Well,
they're just like hairy creature. Like they look like us, kind of, but they're hairy. It's like
well, that's the
are they
thing.
really like an ape or like a person? They're a Bigfoot, you know?
The ape thing comes from because technically we're apes too. Like we're so close to a gorilla and an orangutan in most ways that if that's the missing link, that's what it would be. And ape came along, but they could you call him a person? You could. There's people. There's a guy. His name, if you look him up, Todd Standing. He's controversial, but he lives in Canada, but he went to court to try and get rights for them for protection. So
Oh,
people,
for apes? Is that what you're talking
no,
about?
for Bigfoot.
Oh, Bigfoot.
Yeah. He has a documentary on Netflix called Discovering Bigfoot. He has some good footage and some sketchy footage, but
I guess
he went
really I don't really call Bigfoots like ape just because like I don't know if I really believe in evolution, I guess. Like I don't really debate people on it. It's just I don't know if I like have like the information for me to believe it personally, but you know.
well. The way I look at it is we found Neanderthal bones,
Mhm.
right? So they existed. So we came from them probably. I wasn't there.
I know that's
So,
why I don't even really like to get into the bones conversation. Come like I don't know.
well,
I didn't even get to see the bones.
no.
Like I didn't dig them up. So it's like a lot of stuff. Like I can change my mind or whatever. Like on things. Like it's not like that big a deal. But a lot of time I'm just like I don't know how I feel. Like I'm just like neutral on things because I didn't do like the research myself. You know. So I'm
Oh,
just
no.
very neutral. I'm neutral on a lot of things just because
Well,
I'm ignorant about stuff.
I'm sure, without a doubt, especially like you've seen in the atheist community, the theist atheist thing. That's a big deal. The
Yeah.
evolution thing.
Hmm.
I always go in like that, and I'm like, I am not a scientist, nor what do I have a time machine to tell you what happened. I live in the here and now,
Yeah.
and with Bigfoot, we see them now. People see them now. If they exist now, fine. But we can also look at a gorilla who can do sign language.
Well,
So
yeah, I think that's kind of that's pretty cool. You know, there's Coco and like
Coco passed away, but yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. They could do that, but I think there's just so many millions of differences between us and like apes and stuff. But you know, I have a bunch of Kent Hovind books and stuff, and I was into him for a long time. But I actually got to have a call. I got to talk to him, and I don't really. He kind of just tainted it for me, so I don't. He was very rude. That's all I want to say. I don't really. I
Oh,
probably shouldn't be talking about this
he.
on YouTube, but he was not very nice, or loving. He was probably like
Oh,
really disappointed me because I really liked a lot of his stuff.
there's a million obviously debates about that. Me having a foot in the atheist community, I know who he is. I've seen him. The only
Hmm.
problem I have with him is he's selling it. Like
Yeah,
if you think you're right, that's fine. But he'll go, you can find that on my disc 7, and I'm like,
he's just trying to sell books and stuff.
you're
Yeah.
selling salvation, and like just like anybody else, none of us have a time machine. We weren't there, but if we look at the here and now, that's what we can look at. And again, if one story from the Bigfoot 10,000 witnesses, if one's right, there's something there. And
Hmm.
there's so many thousands a year by literally credible people who have nothing to gain that
Yeah.
that's the ones we all look into in the Bigfoot
Well, I
world and
think
go, what is that?
like Kent Hovind or whatever, or Hovind, I don't know how to say his name. I think he's like a young Earth creationist, but I don't know how
Yes.
I feel about that even. Uh, I don't know how old the Earth is, so I don't usually debate it. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it could be like really old. It could be like I don't know. So that's just something I don't fully know if I agree with or not. I don't know. I'm just neutral
Well,
on it. Like,
I I like the fun facts about it. Like Max, who does my stuff with me, he thinks it's fascinating, and he likes to tell people that you know who Cleopatra is, right?
mhm,
Cleopatra from Egypt.
mhm.
She lived closer to the moon landing than she did to the building of the pyramids.
Oh wow.
So you can people can say all these things, but so much has happened in just what we know. That's
Well,
like
sometimes like with history, also I'm like, how far does it go back? Like, is some stuff like more recent than they're telling us too? And like, like I don't know. Like, I don't know.
well, you know
I'm only
what?
28. I haven't been alive that long. I don't know nothing.
No, but you're old enough and smart enough to evaluate for yourself. But these are topics if they, we could do it, anybody wants, but like they still have no like definitive answer of how the pyramids were built. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's why I was like, did a Bigfoot do it?
well, no, but was it ancient aliens or were the Egyptians that
Science.
good? Why are there pyramids in every country? Like the Mayan pyramids looks the same. Like that's weird. Why did they disappear? Like,
Well, I don't know. Maybe we're underestimating people of the past. Maybe they're a lot more intelligent than we give them credit for because the Romans had plumbing systems. Like they weren't
they
dumb.
invented roads.
They weren't ignorant people. And then there's
No,
also theories that they had some sort of flying mechanism and stuff, like how we have helicopters.
yeah.
Like that's kind of interesting. If it's true or not, it's kind of it's kind of neat. Their surgical
Well,
tools and stuff are more precise and better than what we have
that's
today.
right. Oh,
So,
um, yeah, the running water is a big deal. People don't realize the aqueduct
hmm
system for the Romans, and there's a there's a there's a phrase people talk about, or a way people think, like the world has some type of amnesia, where that's why we can't figure out like or remember like how stuff like the pyramids get built and why something like Atlantis seems like it could have happened, or like why
hmm
we get to that point, and or time travel, like
hmm
you name it, and like those are the cool things. And if anyone wants to look into it, there was a show I was a guest producer on called The 40 Slip, and they talk about time travel to aliens to Bigfoot to any of those topics, and let us know, because there's a million you could talk about and examples and people, and you know Bigfoot's just one little sliver of
Every
like
time I just hear about like time travel or something, I just think like, oh, it's like here's an old picture and there's some dude he has a cell phone or something. Like, I just think about that kind of stuff. Like when people talk about
nah,
time travel.
yeah, those are the bogus. But you think about, like, I'm sure you heard of the Baghdad battery where they found what looks like something that could have gave electricity to the Egyptians.
Oh no, I have never heard about
Yeah,
that.
look up the Baghdad battery. It's this little cylinder, and
Okay.
it looks like they could have had a type of electricity, because how did they see inside the pyramids in the interior and there's no ash from fire? How did they build in there? How,
Well,
those are,
I oh, on the pyramids,
yeah, stuff like those are like weird questions.
they didn't use torches or something. I don't know.
Well, there's no ash on the ceilings from fire if they brought
Oh,
torches in
okay,
with
yeah,
them.
that's what you just said.
And
Oh,
the like people look at the movie The Mummy where they turn mirrors from the sunlight. Like in
hmm
the movie, they turn a mirror from the sun and hit other mirrors to make light.
aren't the
It
pyramids? they just like didn't they just leave bodies in those, or could you actually explore in those? Because like what
Um,
I heard was that they would put the bodies in there, but then they put like some booby traps so people couldn't take all the jewels from the dead people because they believe that when they die, they're gonna go to the underworld and have all their like stuff with them. So they have to lock it up
um,
so people don't take their riches.
that's the funny thing. A lot of the booby trap thing is, or the curse thing for mummies comes from pop culture movies and such. But
No,
that
that's real though, isn't it?
no, it does happen. No, it does
They did
happen.
do
But
that, like I think,
it
right?
like King Tut and all that. Those like there were traps and curses and stuff. But the Great Pyramid, where you had the three, like they never found any bodies. Like they look like they're tombs, and some you can see were not grave robbed, but they never found a body or anything that looked like a body. And you heard of Valley of the Kings, that's
Mhm.
where they actually buried a lot of people. So, and why do they have little pathways that are only like, the size of this going up? They're aiming at stars. So there's many theories. Some say they're generators for power, or water went through the pyramids and created power.
Who
Or
was that? They found some mummy, and he was like a famous like Egyptian like pharaoh, and I think they said he's the god of water or something. He was the one that died in the casket in the water, and like some like dude he explored and he found like a little step, and then he kept digging, and then there was more steps, and then they went and they found that guy's tomb, and he's like super famous, like Pharaoh, and I can't even think his name. And then like the guy was like, I don't believe in curses, and he's like, I'm gonna take this stuff. And then like the guy died in a horrible way, like after that.
that was King Tut,
Was it
King
King
Tut,
Tut?
King Tutankhamun.
Oh, okay, then I don't think King Tut's not the god of like or
He
the
was no,
what is
he was
he?
the he was just the son of
He's just like yeah,
Akhenaten.
little like crippled boy or something, right?
He was a young boy, and his father Akhenaten is the one who had like an elongated skull. And
Mhm.
stuff, and that's that story. But yeah, the
Okay.
Egyptians, their pantheon was the god of the sun Ra, to Ice, not Isis, but they had a name for
Isil, she's a goddess, I think, right? Isil.
well, I said Isis, but that's Greek, I think. But
Oh, well,
yeah, they
I
they
don't
had a
know.
they had a god for everything. So there was a god of what, like Thoth, or the dog-headed, god was the god of the
Yeah, the
dead, this and that. But I forgot the one. There is one of water, but yeah, King Tutankhamun. That everybody on that dig ended up dying in weird ways, and
yeah.
but not like
Well,
instantly. But some
wasn't like
died.
one of the guys survived. Like he's the one that like was telling him it was a bad idea. I think he's
Yeah,
like the only one that like made it, and the rest of them like. So that was
yeah.
kind of that's it's like a mummy curse is real or something. It's like what happened to that dude? He got jacked up.
Well, that's another one we could do one day. Is curses,
Curses
because
and
it's not
hexes.
just Egypt. They're from all over the place.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
look, I'm in New Orleans, and voodoo's a big deal. You see it everywhere. You hear about it. There's voodoo stores, you name it. But that goes to Haitian lore, where zombies,
Mhm.
the real zombies, are from.
Mhm.
So you name it. There's a lot of the stuff we talk about is curses. In and of itself, like a Ouija board. That's a curse if you bring something out or whatever. And,
I ain't messing with one of those.
well, but we always say, if you couldn't, the fact that you can buy one in a toy store and it's made by Parker Brothers,
I thought it was
or
Milton Bradley, but
I
yeah.
think it's Milton Bradley, but I don't think Milton Bradley would put something demonic in a
I
store.
don't think it was meant to be like that, but it
No,
just kind of happened. It did
back in the
happen.
day, though,
What
I'm,
about The Exorcist? That was based on a true story. Some boy was playing with a Ouija board, and then he'd be saying,
mm,
"I'm the devil. I'm the devil," and he's like
the
crazy.
movie, took a lot of liberties with that story. Like the things that were real from everything I've ever heard about it or seen or read is there was a boy, and the things that were weird was him speaking in a voice that wasn't his, speaking languages that
Different
he
languages.
wouldn't know. being super strong, super violent, but the
Have you
movie
heard
took it to the extreme.
there was like the Curse of Emily Rose, and that was based on a real girl, a German girl. And there's recordings of her like being all like really scary, and she said she had like the demon of like or the spirit of Hitler or something. And she was like really
I
frightening.
We love that movie, and like the Exorcism of Emily Rose. There's a couple of those exorcism movies. There was one, I forgot the name, but it was filmed. It was filmed down here in New Orleans, and it was about a preacher who runs into an actual demon type thing. But yeah,
Mm,
like stuff that happens that shouldn't happen, but like the Catholic Church in and of itself has a priest who know how to do that. That's weird.
mhm.
Like why go through that trouble? But those cases are few and far between. But the famous ones we just mentioned, yeah, like there's something not right there. So
Yeah,
where
that's
does it
kind of
end?
scary. I'll be right back. I gotta pee again because I've been drinking all the water. So you
No
gotta talk to
problem.
everybody.
Oh, okay.
Talk about the demons or something.
There's still
The
people
devil.
here.
Yeah. What you think people are like? Yeah, this is boring. This life. No, there are people here. They want to hear. There's people waiting for us to do the show, and then we were late, like by like 30 minutes.
Oh,
But
well,
it's okay.
okay,
All right, I'll be right back. You take over.
okay. Well, for anybody who was here and we were late, I apologize for that. We were getting the last minute touches on for the show. Um, if anything we've said interests you, and or better yet, if anybody has their own stories, send them to us, and we'll keep you anonymous. We'll look into it. Find out if there's anything near where you live. Give us the generic information because I can't stress it enough. For every city in every state, there's a story of a monster or a ghost or um, I'm trying to think of some of them. Like I live in Louisiana, we have plantations. I've seen my own set of ghosts. That's a very, very traumatizing story. That uh, but there's a ghost. Man, there's so many haunted places down here, and every city has it. Every city, every state, every town, even small towns have this person went crazy, or that house is haunted, nobody goes there, or there's phantom planes, there's phantom animals, or and we mentioned exorcisms. Those are story. Well, here you go. Everybody's probably heard of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or the movie Psycho. That's from an actual killer called Ed Gein. There's something from everywhere. I was telling everybody, if anybody has their own story to tell us, and we'll look into it. There's something in every town. There's something for everybody. Everybody's near something. Something
Exactly.
spooky. Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about like demon movies. Have you ever seen The Rite? My dad told me to watch that because I told him my dad likes those demon movies because he's like did the
Is that
exorcism.
Anthony Hopkins?
Yeah, it's really good, and it has like
We
the
I've seen
skeptic
that.
in it. I thought that was a good one.
It was good because it wasn't the typical by the numbers story, and it had the frogs, and you know that was a good one.
I also kind of liked how it was like a skeptic dude, like who was becoming a
Yeah,
priest because like I guess like it's a tradition or something, and then he's like, I don't believe in this stuff, and then he saw all this freaky stuff happen. I thought that was kind of neat. I
I
don't understand why freaking Anthony Hopkins got possessed though. It's like that's kind of why is he getting possessed? I thought he's like a Christian or something or
they
Catholic. I guess.
yeah they even used the name. I think the demon was Baal, which is an actual demon. It's like Baull or something.
Mhm.
That's what he because in that movie and most exorcisms they go, well, what is your name? In The Exorcist, it was Pazuzu, and I think that one was Ball, and that's an actual like
Don't
satanic
say
name.
it.
I'm not worried
You
about
don't
that,
believe
but
in that? Yeah, you don't believe in it. I do. We got different beliefs. You
well,
gonna freaking make the ball come along and freak me out.
Well,
Don't assume
hey,
it.
I was mentioning while you were gone that I have my own ghost story, so I'm not saying there isn't something, but if there were demon possessions that were real and demons were real, that means there would have to be something on the other side, like good. And you never hear of an angel story possession or a good something possession, but that might not be
I've
what they're
seen weird
about.
stuff in church though. Like, I mean, because you've like grown up in church and stuff, right?
Yep.
So you probably have seen like people do some weird stuff.
Uh,
Like
I can
people.
I can tell you something, okay? Um, I did 12 years of Catholic school. In grammar school, my grammar school had a very, very beautiful church. And one year we were sitting across, and the light was coming through this one particular window on one of the nuns, because my teachers were priests, brothers, or nuns. And this light was shining on this one nun, and she died like 2 days later. And everybody
Mm,
commented, like, why did we all notice that the light was shining on her through like 2 or 3 days of mass? So it could be coincidence or it could have been a sign, but you know
that's interesting. I
it's
mean,
spooky.
I've seen people be really scary in church. I've seen people laugh, and it almost seems like demonic, but they'll just be like, ha 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 ha, ha. And it's like, dude, like, it's like I'm laughing in the spirit. I'm like, that seems like the devil or something. I don't like it. And then like people be falling over, and they'll be like, I'm so drunk on Jesus. And I'm like, this is just, I don't know how I feel about this stuff. And then like some dude, he just like, what was it? He like no, it wasn't something like a bunch of people were like screaming at me in church because they claimed I was doing witchcraft. They kept saying that. I was like, I'm not doing witchcraft. And then like they're like, devils be gone or something. And like I fell and I was like, oh my god. And somebody had to catch me. I was like, what did
Well,
they do to me? I felt like jello. I felt weird and I fell. I
have
didn't like
you?
it.
I
It
I
said I was
talk I
flamed
talk
in the spirit.
I talk to people where we kind of ration it. Where have you ever just been like, you could be by yourself, but you get so like pent up with energy or anger where just you have to scream, right? Or you get so sad where all of a sudden you could be normal and just you cry because you're sad, right?
Hmm.
To me, that's probably what it is. Where like, because
Well, maybe they
they
scared
know.
me. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you got overwhelmed. It doesn't matter what the topic might have been. If you have 5 or 6 people in front of you, you're gonna be like on guard. Your mind's gonna react. They've proven that prayer does change your brain waves, but so does music, and so does meditation, so does drugs. But
Well, it's sort of like when you go to a big stadium church and people are like, "Woo, I feel Jesus," or something. They'll be like, "Woo, I feel God." It's
right,
like I think it's just the excitement of the big crowd is what you're feeling, and you're mistaking that. It's like, what does
uh,
God feel like? What does Jesus feel like? They're like, "Woo, I just feel it." I'm like, I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what you mean. So like,
well, think of any. Have you ever been to a rock concert or a music concert?
that's what I'm saying. It's like that's
Right.
what they're feeling
It's
is
the
that
same
rush.
thing.
You
Like
know,
the rush is the same, the feeling is the same, but that's my problem when people go, I felt God. It's like, no, you felt something, but you're
because you're
attributing
in
it to
a big
God.
crowd of people, it's like
Right.
exciting.
Oh,
Like you're gonna have like yeah, you're gonna feel something because like I'm like, what does God feel like? Because like I'm a Christian, I believe in God, but I'm like, what do you mean? Like how does it feel? Like what do you mean?
right. Well, I can tell you this. If you were to play like a Metallica song right now, I'd probably start headbanging because I have to. Like, I can't help it. But
Uh
that's the
huh.
same thing. Like
Yeah.
people who get scared will start praying because it calms them down. Like,
Well,
to me,
um,
that's calming yourself. You're
I
not
don't know how you feel about like speaking in tongues and stuff. Um, I was raised Pentecostal, so my parents do that. I ended up doing that when I was younger. It happened to me in the middle of a prayer, and it startled me. And I don't really, well, I guess maybe I've talked about it on YouTube. I don't think I did, but I was praying one time. I was praying for a family that was struggling, because I used to do this. I used to just sit in my room and I'd pray in the morning before I'd start my day. I'd just pray for like everybody I care about and even people I hate. And one day I was praying, and all of a sudden I started, like singing, like
Right.
saying stuff like that, like, and I was like, "What in the world is this?" And like, I knew what praying in tongues was, but then I had to call my parents, and I was like, "I'm scared." I started speaking this weird language, saying some kind of stuff. I don't know what I'm saying, and my mom's like, "Oh, you got the gift or whatever." I'm like, this scared me.
Yeah.
It
Well,
freaked me out. I'm like saying all this weird stuff, and it sounded very Hebrew to me. And I recorded it, and I was like, "This sounds like I'm actually speaking a language. What is going on with me?" Um,
um, I can tell you this. There's a very, very good YouTube channel called the Utah Outcast, and they're ex-Mormons, and they try and help people who are stuck because the Mormons, it's pretty hard to get out of. But
oh,
they have a video,
Scientology
and
too.
yeah, just like that. They have a video it was pretty recent where it's a guy, and I think it's on the Jim Baker show if you ever heard of him, but
Ugh.
he's speaking in tongue. Oh, he's speaking in tongues, and while he's doing it, he pulls out his phone and checks it and puts it back in his pocket. So I don't take that much stock in it, but I know weird things do happen. But it's like Bigfoot again. Like all
Have
it
you
takes is one, like to be okay. There's something to it. So
have you seen that guy? Like this is just kind of random, but it was funny to me. It was like a TV pastor because I don't really buy into TV pastors. I think it's all showbiz, whatever. But he's like looking at Twitter. He has his phone, and he's just like, "Oh, praise be to Jesus," and everybody's all praying, and like he's just treating everybody in the audience like they're dumb. He's just like, "Yeah, Jesus, Jesus." I kept doing that. I'm like, "What in the world?" He's like, and I'm like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
dude! Like this guy. He's like one of those guys that sells stuff to you." So I'm like, "This guy's full of shit." He's like Jim Baker. He just
well,
wants you to buy his book,
yeah,
buy his fucking food, his fucking
oh
apocalypse dude.
yeah.
It's just like, fuck you, dude. I
Hey,
don't.
you said
First of all,
you
why am I gonna buy a freaking apocalypse pizza when I have to have a fully functioning kitchen? How am I gonna be able to make that when the apocalypse happens?
well, and if it's the apocalypse, we're probably not going to be here too long.
No, but it's like, okay, freaking spend like all your hard earned, like, cause that food is like so expensive. It's like thousands of dollars. It tastes like shit.
Yeah.
And you have to have a fucking kitchen to cook it. It's like, okay, in the apocalypse, we're not gonna have a fucking kitchen to cook this shit. Like,
Hey,
I just like,
You said Pentecostal. Is that where they hold up snakes?
oh, I don't know. I've never heard of that. Like,
Oh yeah. Okay.
um, we're just real spiritual.
Well,
Um,
I thought it was Pentecostal, but there is a branch of it's all branch
those people
obviously of
that like
Christianity.
get the
You've seen
people
them.
with cobras
They
or
hold up
something.
snake. No, it's just a handful of snakes of all kind, and because there's verses in the Bible that say if you're one of God's children, the snakes can't hurt you, that type of thing. But people do get bit. But I thought it was Pentecostal. I might have.
I
It might,
ain't trying to do that.
well,
I know.
I don't like snakes, so I'd be like, that's all right. You can, but
I think
that.
trusting God is like not putting yourself in harm's way too. It's like, okay, I'm not an idiot too. Like,
Well,
like God's
yeah,
gonna
because
protect me. I'm gonna put myself in worse position. It's like, okay, it's kind of
well,
on you. It's your fault.
that's when you get into people who don't take their kids to the doctor and pray
Mm.
instead, and will end up dying. There's a certain level, whether you believe or not. Like people say, I'm going to pray for you, and most like that's great, but in reality, we need to help ourselves and be on our
I
own.
think
So
I made a video about that recently. I think you probably already saw it anyway, where I talked about how I believe in prayer and doctors because I think doctors are used by God to help people. So I don't believe in people not going to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Like, pray for your doctor if you're worried that your doctor's like doing the wrong stuff. Like, pray that God will like
yeah,
lead them. That's what you should do. Is pray
I,
for your doctors. Go to the doctor. Don't like leave your kids suffering.
right.
That's stupid.
But
To
one of
not.
the
It's
things,
like not doing anything and just saying God's gonna fix everything.
Right.
That's so dumb to me. It's like you have to
Well,
take actions too.
you can go to jail in real
Yeah.
life, but I look at it where there there is a children's hospital in every state where there are infants with cancer. So
Mhm.
that's real life, God or not. Like
Mhm.
we need scientists and doctors to figure out the problem because you know we all get sick. We all that's going to happen. Were you talking about when you had a tooth problem? I remember that.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about because of like Luke. I don't know if you know Luke in the Bible was a doctor and he was led by God and he helped many people. So I just always know you should go to the doctor because like God's gonna use scientists, doctors. He's gonna use them. So you trust people because you believe in God. You don't just sit there and
Hmm.
do nothing and expect everything to be handed to you while you don't do nothing. It's just like these people that sit on their ass and they think they get a free ticket to heaven or something. It's like it
Right.
doesn't really work like that. You got to do stuff.
Well, I can tell you that I actually have four Bibles next to my bed. I've always kept reading them. I don't just say I'm an atheist. Blah. I look into it. I know that the disciples all had jobs. They weren't all just fishermen. Some were tax collectors, auditors.
Hmm.
Um, you know, um, I was about to say magician. God damn it. Um, but no, I do know what you're talking about, and so even like everybody had a job, like we need people to do certain things. Like
Yeah.
you can't pray for a house or shelter. Somebody needs to build it, and you need to.
Yeah, but you could be doing it for like, you know what I mean? It's
Right,
like I want to show you like how my God is loving, so I'm gonna do things for you to show you like what
right,
Christians are supposed to be like. We're supposed to represent Christ, so
right.
we are supposed to be helping people. Like,
Well, I do tell like I tell my kids like God or not, religion or
mhm.
not, you need to be the best person you can. I'm about pretty soon. I'm going to be cutting my hair again. I send it to Locks of Love
Aw.
every time I grow it long enough, and uh, I can't give to charities because I'm pretty much poor, but
Yeah, me
um,
too.
there are places where I do help.
Mhm.
Like there aren't really homeless shelters near me, but there's charities we help out at. I have a relative that works for the Children's Hospital near me. So you don't need religion to do it, but yeah.
Mhm.
So probably after my surgery, I'm gonna cut my hair again. I'll go
Well,
short,
I don't
but
think you need religion to do it. I'm just saying,
no,
like,
oh
to
no,
be like, if you're gonna say you're a Christian, it's good to help people. Like we're supposed to. I mean, like we were talking about earlier. I'm not gonna mention the names, but we were talking about people that I had issues with. I pray for them actually. I pray for them
no.
all the time. Because I do have like sympathy for them. I'm not evil. I'm not a monster. I don't want bad things to happen to people. I want people to get better.
I can I can tell in sometimes those people we're talking about. I can tell in their faces like they probably are really good people, but like you could chase fame or money or whatever, but something's going to get in the way, and that's truly what people call sin. Like it is evil, and
Mhm.
you don't need to be religious or not. Like I hold the door open for people and say yes, ma'am, and all that, yes, sir, and please and thank you. But that should be just a human thing. Like that's we should do that no matter what.
Like
But
equal respect and stuff.
right, but let's let's get off of that. We don't need to
Okay.
we can do a show on that if we want, but I
I
hope
don't even know how we got onto that. Oh, we were talking about the devil or something.
well like
Or the devil movie.
you could talk about like I said, people think Bigfoot or Nephilim, that
Hmm.
so
A lot
there's
of time
connections.
I don't even really get into my beliefs. Like I said, a lot of time I think the Christian atheist stuff's boring. And I also am not trying to change somebody. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you're an idiot because you don't agree with me. I'm not into that kind of stuff either. I think I don't
Well,
like it.
if anybody goes on my channel, like we have trailer reviews, skateboarding, gun reviews, but I step into debates when
Hmm.
people, and you know, one of them who knows the people we're talking about, who loves to say, well, atheists have no morals and just do bad things. And that's when I jump in and go, well, that's not true. You know,
Well,
I
yeah,
have,
because it's insulting, you
yeah,
know.
because I hear like, oh, a lot of atheists come from a broken family. And I'm like, no, my parents been together like 40 years and still together and happy.
Hmm.
My dad's a great person. My mom is super. And, you know, so that's when I step in because,
Hmm.
yeah, they talk about, I'm tired of hearing about evolution and morality and science. And it's like, okay, nobody's getting anywhere. That's why nothing gets done now. Like,
Well, yeah, but it's sort of the same argument that some people will use with race and stuff, because some people will have a bad experience with a black person, they'll blame all black people. It's like, okay,
yeah,
that's not fair to like not treat people like individuals and just blame them all. Like,
I can. That's actually pretty straightforward. And again, as an atheist, I've had deep, meaningful relationships with a Hispanic woman and an African American woman, and they're just women. Like it's not there
yeah,
should be no distinction other than that. But I do live in the South, and there are some bad people. Like there are
mm-hmm.
still David Duke signs. You know who David Duke
Mm.
is, I'm sure.
He's an
He was
idiot.
a No, he was a Klansman, a Grand Wizard from the Klan who ran for
No,
governor.
I know who he is. I don't like him
You can
too
still
much.
see signs everywhere from the 80s to now. People still, and people will point out, yeah, the Klan used to gather there. And hell, like we have plantations. We all know what that's about, and it's terrible. So, you know,
Yeah.
but,
Mm-hmm.
and like you, to bring it back, um, I've been putting together a list of the plantations around here and the stories and which ones are haunted the most. So we can do part of it like in one of our shows. I'll run through that because every one of them is haunted. And it's not just down here in the South because even Virginia's the South. Virginia's way up there if you look on the map. Like, I'm by the Gulf of Mexico, but if
Mm-hmm.
you go up to like even the top of Kentucky and Tennessee, that's pretty north. And, this all so just ideas.
Oh yeah. Well, we got so many ideas we've been talking about too. Um, so yeah, like I'm excited about the movie stuff too because like I'm really into that pop culture stuff. You know, and I like the spooky stuff. I really do. Um, I think we should do like sci-fi stuff as well because I'm heavily into the sci-fi world.
Well, that's why I was glad the first show. Like I was trying to throw so many movies at you to show you like there's so many I know and that you obviously know, and through our talking, how many we like that like you wouldn't think, like when you said Eraserhead, I was blown away. I'm like, oh, I love that movie. Not many
Hmm.
people know about it, but and the
I
Rocky
like that
Horror
movie.
Shock
Yeah,
Treatment, all
it's
these
just
connections,
yeah,
definitely.
like it seems like we know a lot of the same movies and stuff like that nobody appreciates or nobody gives a shit about. Like like we were talking about Eraserhead, like who fucking talks about that? That's one of my favorite movies. Nobody fucking talks
Yep.
about it. Nobody really likes it. I thought it was cool. It was like dark, depressing, but it was like with life. And I thought it had cool imagery. I liked just
Oh
like
yeah.
I just like very artsy. It was cool. I liked a
Black
lot
and
of the
white.
shots. Yeah, and just like it was so weird too. I like really strange things, like stuff that people would think is like maybe even evil or something because it's just weird. Like um, because I like Tim and Eric and stuff too. I don't know if you know who they are. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
they're weird, but like they make me laugh, and
Wait,
it's like I
wait.
don't understand it.
Got
Have you ever
mind
seen a?
blown.
Yeah, there's a guy called he makes cartoons on here. His name's or it's Sick Animation. Those cartoons crack me up. They make no sense.
It sounds
They're just
familiar.
sick animation.
Hmm. I think
I don't know. If,
so.
some of them might be considered offensive, so I'm not really gonna like. I'll like send them to you or something. But like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're funny. I have a
Then
dark sense of humor sometimes. about stuff that maybe is inappropriate.
Nah, me too. Yeah, we said we found out like we do enjoy that. So for anybody who may be watching, stay tuned because we're gonna bring a lot of this stuff up that's funny and scary and interesting, and you might learn
Weird.
something. Yeah,
What'd you say?
because
Wacky Wednesdays?
wacky weird Wednesdays,
Oh, yeah. We're
that'd
gonna
be
have
fun.
the Wacky Wednesdays.
Fun fact Friday, you name it. Like we can, bring
Fun
stuff
fact, right?
out.
How are you coming out with all these name ideas? I can't even hardly think. I thought of Spooky Saturday. That was kind of cool one. I like generic
Well,
names.
I guess because one of the big things they say is branding. Like give something for somebody to remember. Like anybody who watches my videos, you'll probably it always says Garden of Fear presents the Dude Brothers, Max and ChuBs. Those are the things you'll hear, and that way, like I like if I say Cinemassacre or the Angry Video Game Nerd, you probably know who that is.
Yeah, I love him.
Right, that's a good place to learn. Like he'll bring up horror movies from the 30s, and to
Hmm.
learn about that stuff. And
Well, he
I
just started
try.
off with video games, and now he's talking about all these movies, and it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, he earned his place like starting in '06 and just I'm gonna review this game and it took off.
Guys, the
So
Power Glove video is like one of my favorites. That's the old one.
I
Love that
never
one.
had the Power Glove, but I heard it's crap.
It was
Like
so crappy. Like he was like getting so mad. Have you seen his video on it?
oh, I've caught up to every season of his now. Like I've caught up with it. So,
Oh,
but
really? I When did you start watching? I started watching him like when it was old, like when it was new, like
oh,
years ago, when I was like a teenager.
like yeah, he started in '06. I probably started watching him in '09. Like
Yeah,
I
I
said,
think. Well, I'm a original OG or whatever on YouTube. Like I started my channel 2006, so I've been here from the beginning. You know,
my first
I was
video was 2011 because uh, I got married in '08, so I was kind of busy before and after. But I
yeah,
was watching, but I didn't have a channel till 2011. So.
I was like 13 when I posted my first video, and now I'm 28, so I've been here for a while. It's been a long
I,
time.
yeah, well, I was telling you in messages, like it took me a while because I started the channel, but then medical problems or financial problems, or I was moving,
Hmm.
or everything kept getting away. And it wasn't until recently, as you saw, like I started to influx videos where we were finally getting on track, and but just
Well,
like this show's taken off because we're starting to get it. So,
I had to quit YouTube for a few years myself, due to I was with somebody that wouldn't let me do YouTube. Like they just forbid it for some reason. So, I just kind of had to abandon my channel for quite a few years. And then after, that situation happened with him, I'm like, okay, I'm going back to YouTube because I kind of miss it. And I think I came back. I quit in I think '09, and I came back in 2016.
yeah, well, for anybody listening now or later, stay tuned because we have a lot of stuff on deck, a lot of cool stuff. We're not going to give anything away, but it's not just going to be horror stuff. Like you never know what you're going to see because we want to expand everything, but entertainment for everybody. And if you we take suggestions, leave comments,
Mhm.
as they say, like, share, subscribe, but I'm not going to. I don't worry about all that, but it doesn't hurt. But like I like shows, and that's what I want to be. Where we listen to people, like we take suggestions, or somebody brings something up, look into it, or
And we
you
could do a
know,
Q&A and stuff too. Like,
yeah, definitely.
do you think we could do a show and then we could have like a Q&A at the end or something?
Yeah, where I like where people will take questions from the chat as it goes, and it's like we'll answer that, and then or people leave comments like, "Hey, have you ever seen this movie?" We'll go find it and we'll review it, or you know,
Yeah.
give our take on it because we're going to be building. So me and you're going to start reviewing movies for
Hey,
the
Adamy.
masses. So yeah, anytime like Q and A is definitely cool. So that'd be awesome.
Well, yeah, because like I'm not trying to ignore the chat and stuff. It's just like whenever we're getting deep into the subject, it's like I gotta focus on it because then I'll like get like, and
Right.
there's everybody's been very nice and stuff in the chat, so that was like that kept me centered, you know.
Well, I was very impressed. Our first show, when it was just the horror movies, I went back like the next day to just look at the chat, and people were saying, "Oh, I love Freddy the most, and I like Jason." Like people were getting into it, and that's what we want. Like, bring your
Mhm.
ideas and like tell everybody what you think. That's what the chat's supposed to be for. But we
Well, we want
should,
to entertain people,
yeah.
we don't want to, be like a waste of space on YouTube. We want to be like entertainers, content creators.
Well, we are putting quality content out and entertainment, and
Yeah,
you
and I
know,
think even just like Spooky Saturdays, like we have like a week to, you know, research or like come up with what we're gonna talk about. I think that's kind of nice too.
but
I'm kind of glad we took last week off because I was like a little frustrated with all that stuff that was going on. So I feel like I was more prepared this week and I was more excited and ready, I guess, because there
well,
was all these
we
monsters I had to deal with.
we also are just getting our footing, And last week I was dealing with, schools were off for a week. You saw my Mardi Gras thing. You were there.
Yeah.
That's Fat Tuesday for you. That's our Mardi Gras where people throw plastic beads at your head. So, but schools were off, so my son was home, and I was just beat trying to get back on track from that happening. So, but no, like again, I'm not gonna give it away to the audience, but some of the things we're talking about, like it won't just be Saturday. You might find shorter videos on a Wednesday or a Friday, bringing up short little topics. So definitely, like, keep an ear out for us. Stay tuned because you never know what you're gonna see.
Well, yeah. Also, I feel like we kind of threw everybody off too because we didn't do like last Saturday. So like everybody was more excited about this week because it's like there was nothing like last week, and it just kind of happened like that. But there's a lot of people waiting. Like I had the stream ready to fire up for like 30 minutes, and there's people like actually waiting and like, oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. So that was kind of exciting for me that people are liking what we talk about and like they want to hear it. Because
Hey,
I
we're
really
here for
do.
them.
I really think like the horror movie thing was really. I think it went really good, and I feel like I had a lot of knowledge on those things. I don't feel like I had any dead air because
Right.
I have a lot of dead air. I'm kind of boring, and I don't know. Like I'm not that smart, so I just like feel like I'm gonna sabotage it or something. I get like really like I suck or something. That's why I'm like insecure, I guess. So I'm like
Well,
I suck.
no, that's all. You're insecure because you're definitely smart. Because I'm actually dumb, and I can tell you you're smart and interesting. And like I said, when I saw the chat, people were paying attention, and they seem to enjoy what we're saying. And I think a lot of the stuff we've been talking about behind the scenes is going to bring people back and keep them interested.
Hmm.
Because definitely some horror stuff, but not just that. Like the Rocky Horror thing. That I'm excited to do that one. That's not going to be a big
Hmm.
long one. We can do that like on a weird Wednesday and just 30, 45 minute show. So, but we'll
Hmm.
iron all that out.
Oh, and we're gonna talk about shock treatment too, because I told you I
That's
love
what I,
shock treatment. Yeah,
well, that's when I say Rocky Horror, I meant both because they did have a
they're
theater.
so different from each other, aren't they?
Oh
Hey,
yeah,
Adam
except
E says
the
he's really high right now.
I'm jealous, so good for him. But hey, why not? But um, yeah, that's just one topic. We have so many. I think people are going to really dig what to come to us for entertainment, for fun.
Yeah.
So that's what
Well,
that's what
and
we're about.
we're gonna have like topics, so they'll know what they know what they're getting into. You know, if they don't, if they're not interested, they don't have to watch it. But if it's something they like, then they could be excited about it.
Yeah, like today we did Bigfoot because we brought that up like one of the first things we ever talked about was like the Loch Ness monster. So why not throw something different like that out? Because I have a foot in the cryptid community, so I know a little bit about it. So we weren't just, you know,
Did that
throwing
last
nothing.
did that last show go well to you? Because like I felt like I acted so dumb. I felt like so embarrassed about it.
Wait, our last show?
Yeah, like the one where because I wasn't really prepared and stuff, and we were talking about urban legends. Did I blow
Oh,
that, or was it okay?
no, I thought it was fine, and you were right there with me. And even if you look at the chat, and that's fine. Like, you might get a question, or like be able to address something somebody
Well,
says. But
no,
no,
it was that night, like what happened or whatever I told you, like,
I
and that just kind of distracted me, and I felt like I was acting like a brain dead like idiot or something. Like I felt like embarrassed. Um,
no, I don't. I thought you did perfectly fine, and like you
and
do need to
also
look.
I was supposed to talk about Loch Ness monster, and we didn't even talk about that.
Nah,
And then we talked about eating alligators, and we talked about all this stuff that had nothing to do. So I was like, dude, like, what did I do? I made it so it's like a rando chat.
by the way, did you say you have or haven't eaten alligator?
I've had alligator at the fair before, like the fried stuff,
Well,
but I never had like you were talking about like alligator balls or something that somebody made.
I found there's a couple stores you'll find like alligator balls around, but like most foods, some places do it right. I found one close that does it really good, so I'm going to talk to you about sending you some, and you can do it on air.
Oh, you want me to freaking eat some
Not
alligator balls?
Yeah, we'll do it together. No mukbanging, but
Mukbang.
we
Oh,
can.
you want me to do it on air, or do you want me to like?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I think you should tell people what you think. I'll get some good Cajun food up there for you.
Have you seen my? I've did some mukbangs before. Have you seen them?
Hmm.
I just eat a normal amount of food, and then there's these people eating like crazy amounts of food. It's like I'm just eating like a plate of food. It's like I don't know if that's a mukbang. It's just like
Mm,
I'm eating normal.
I can tell you that I've seen it because I keep an ear through the commentary community who will show like Nikocado, Atacalo, and it's like
I used to like
when
him. I
I
don't anymore. He's canceled.
well, yeah, well, I just don't see watching somebody eat that much that fast, making those noises. But I know ASMR is a thing, so there's something for everybody. But I like people who try food and say what it tastes like, not shoving their
Yeah,
face
there's
in.
the food reviews. We're gonna do a review. We're not gonna be doing like the mukbang where we like being like fat fucks eating like all the food in the world. We're just
No.
gonna be like, yeah, it's a review. It's not gonna be the crazy stuff.
Well, if anybody wants to see, I have one video for we call it on my channel Maximum Experiments, where I did Coke Energy. I tested
Hmm.
I did a try for that because that just came out, and it was cheap, so I picked one up. But
It's cold
yeah,
in
we'll
here.
definitely do that. So
Oh, you said something like you can't drink a lot of caffeine or something nowadays, are like right?
no,
Or
I'm
like,
okay with that.
oh, you are okay. I thought you said something like like you don't do caffeine that well or something like.
That wasn't me. I don't overdo it. I like coffee though, so
Oh, okay. I thought you said something like it makes your blood pressure rate because I like uh have my blood pressure gets high when I drink like soda sometimes. Like I'm drinking
I
soda right now, but like my blood pressure's probably gonna be high.
I have to watch because I have a bad heart, but
Hmm.
I don't. I usually drink like right now. I have Diet Mountain Dew. I don't overdo it, so
It's just like a soda a day or something or less.
stuff like that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, also I have like weird anxiety issues, so I'm like probably shouldn't be drinking caffeine, but like I just kind of wanted some. Like I started drinking Coke again like a couple of days ago, and now I can't stop drinking it. And I drank like I had to get up early. I had stuff I had to do, and then I was like up at 4 in the morning, like drinking like Diet Coke and like dancing to Britney Spears. I was like, what am I doing? I like stuff I'm supposed to do. That's like like that's just how I am. Whenever
Uh,
like, I got things I gotta do.
by the way, you would mention, or I read on your page, like you do like Britney Spears, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay, no, because she's from Louisiana, from Kentwood, and I used to live about an hour away from where her museum is, where she grew up.
Oh, really? Did you go to the
Yeah,
Britney
well,
Museum?
I live here. I've been past it, but like you have to get up the highway, and it's not in her town's small. But no, I live near. We're proud that she's from us. So
Oh, really?
not
I
she
love
hasn't done
Britney.
anything anymore, but or she'd still do in Vegas, right?
Yeah, she does Vegas. Those shows are amazing. Like I want to go, but I can't afford to do that. But that would be like a dream.
Oh no, look,
Why you? You're like,
no,
oh, you like pop music. I like
um,
rock music too, but I like
oh,
a lot of pop music too.
don't be my whole life. People think they know me by some of the stuff I listen to, but you can go on my Instagram and I went and saw the New Kids on the Block with my wife. I saw them with Salt and Pepper. They came to New Orleans.
Oh,
I'll
I
go
like
see
yeah.
anything. I saw
Oh,
Michael Bolton in concert.
do you like New Kids on the Block?
Yeah, they're fine. I used to listen to like a little Backstreet Boys, a couple songs, or in sync. Like
Backstreet Boys.
I'll expand, you know. So, but yeah, I saw that concert. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, I love NSYNC too. I like a lot of like I like a lot of like cheesy like pop music.
I actually, I'll send it to you, but there's a couple bands who do a rock version of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys song, and they're
Oh,
really
really?
good. Yeah,
Well, those are good songs, dude. Like I know people be like, "Oh, that's NSYNC," but the lyrics are good and everything. Like, but NSYNC was extremely talented. I mean, they all can harmonize. Like they were very
I
talented guys.
I love the fact that they of a harmony. Like when you have five people like those groups, and they can, you know, do different octaves for different. I like that. That's but they
It's
were
like barbershops or whatever. What is it
right
called? Or yeah,
barbershop
like
quartet.
yeah, they do that too.
But
And
you
then there's
had
a lot of black groups that did that too, like really beautifully.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, what New Edition, who from there, like Boys to Men, and then you go through that line. So we can
hmm
do a evolution of music episode one day and talk about our favorite stuff.
Do you want to wrap this up so we could talk
Yeah,
about our plans? All right, let's end this and then I'll talk to you some more. All right,
sure.
guys. Thanks for uh coming to the
Joining
show.
us on Spooky Saturday.
Yeah, spooky. All right.